Peggy 18.
Mr. Thatch?
Well, I mean, relatively little is known about Blackbeard. Certainly before he became Blackbeard. But I kind of, to be honest, relied heavily on the script and what came from that. So I didn't really kind of make up a huge backstory. He's I think he's a very clever. He's well read. And he's cunning as well. He knows how to manipulate a situation to his own ends, and it's usually through the theatricality of fear and kind of pull the constant pulling the rug from under people's feet. And I love that about him. I love that you never quite know where you are with Thatch, you know. So I kind of try and embody that as much as I possibly can, and every little kind of in-betweeny bit, whether it be, you know, chucking the rum bottle at Stede Bonnet, and when you pull up alongside in the galleon and we're talking about, you know, what sunken wrecks there are to be plundered. Just kind of never, and also kind of threatening you at one point as well. Not threatening, but just kind of, you know, you don't know where, even though we are probably the best friends in the game, you kind of are never quite sure, you know, about how kind of steadfast I'm going to be, I guess. And I think you know, that's the kind of main character, the main sort of motivation throughout the whole piece for me, really.
He's almost like someone who really knows how to use his acting skills to be able to get what he wants, even though he could back that up. Do you know what I mean? Whereas Vane is that person who's like direct, isn't he?
They're kind of like a mirror of each other, aren't they, in a sense?
Yeah.
It's that kind of thing, the instinct versus the intellect of these two very violent, kind of powerful pirate captains.
It's a surprising thing when you actually read about Blackbeard, and he wasn't known to have killed anybody. Except from perhaps in that last, you know, fight. But that he still has the reputation as the most fearsome. So somewhere along the lines, he, like you said, he's an actor because he created a character so ferocious that people remember him over some of the pirates that did go wantonly murder people, and
that's what I like. I like that enigmatic quality about him. You know, I like the fact that nobody really knows who he was, you know, other than the fact he was fucking terrifying, you know.
Yeah, I think what's great is earlier on, those moments where, you know, Thatch, who's this kind of wild, ambiguous sort of character to everyone that you don't quite know if he's gonna kiss you or kill you. You know, Edward feels that at first, so there is that almost, you know, that tension between them in a good way, which kind of gives them this energy, and then it develops into something which becomes more like a
friendship,
like a proper friendship, and the respect that they gain for each other, I think.
And they ask advice of each other, I think, and you know, they kind of guide each other through the sort of latter stages of the game, I think, you know.
And then he mans up and becomes, you know, friends with Charles Vane. And then it's more of a kind of bullying older brother and kid
the way
brother
we designed it
relationship,
so that the story would become sort of like start with this, the pirate republic. It's a grand thing. It's an idea that could work, like any kind of, you know, invention. You know, like we could make this work in the planning stages, and then in the practice stages, people like Charles Vane show up, and then, you know, and people like Blackbeard leave, and so.
And I think
what's that like?
I think that's what this. Just going to go back, but I think that's what the great thing about Blackbeard's and Edward's relationship is, that, you know, this whole idea which was almost created by, you know, Ed Thatch and Hornigold and these earlier pirates, and then when he decides to retire, Edward's left to kind of decide whether to try and take this mantle on and move it on to something else, you know, and whether it disintegrates or not. And it's that whole kind of legacy thing that happens between father and son in that way. So even though their relationship develops into great friends with a great respect, you know, there is a kind of legacy that Thatch passes on, or part of himself that he passes on to Edward, or at least I feel that Edward absorbs a part of what Thatch is into himself and takes that on as part of himself.
But it's that kind of thing where you think, well, they form this pirate, you know, republic on these really honourable, you know, precepts and these laws that they make and this whole idea, and then they're kind of surprised that this bunch of lawless, murdering bastards, that it doesn't work out. And it's like, duh. You know, it's like, yeah, it's formed, but obviously it immediately gets corrupted by anybody who wants to live by those rules is essentially morally corrupt.
So there's an interesting thing, because the Charles Vane character, despite being kind of, I mean, rough and psychotic, he's also one of the guys that helps try to save Nassau, because he believes in it too, but in his own way. And that's kind of how you guys become friends, in this sort of trying to save Nassau from its...
Yeah, but he's got a certain moral code inherited, in a sense, from Blackbeard as far as the whole Pirate Republic goes, whereas Charles Vane's just seen it as what we've got our own place where we can do our own thing and we're going to protect each other. You know, his only interest in the Pirate Republic is how that will protect him to do his own lawlessness. Right. Whereas the rest of the people,
how does that affect?
It's not a huge moral code. He's just not crazy like Charles Vane is.
How does your relationship develop?
Oh, I think the interesting I think the relationship between Vane and Edward is.
I think they're good at it.
I think they both know what they need from each other, and I think that when they first meet, Edward has heard all the rumours from Thatch and Hornigold about Vane, and he's obviously a little bit sceptical. But there comes a time when they both need each other as much as anything, and they're good at that. And actually, there is a point where I think the two of them could make a really good pirating partnership, and they do for a little while, but you know, there could have possibly been the potential for something bigger, but then, you know, Charles Vane just takes it that step too far.
Yeah, it's always going to burn out with Vane. I mean, it's always going to be 100% all the time, and there's never any forward thought to it like there is with Blackbeard. There's a certain political planning and a thought behind it. Everything is just day to day, moment to moment. So,
it's almost like Edward is like an accumulation in a way of Vane and Blackbeard, because he has his kind of Vane's forward drive and in the moment thinking and spontaneity, but then he also has Blackbeard's cunning and wiliness and ability to be able to think of things and have a different perspective of things.
Can you talk a little bit about what Edward's initial motivations are? What's his, when he leaves England to become a privateer and then a pirate, what's driving him?
I think what's really interesting is like the whole story of this game is about a man who's trying to find his way in the world. And so he's presented with these different opportunities and different versions and ideas of ways of living, and eventually he comes to choose one. And I think the most interesting thing about this game is that this character is in permanent conflict all the time as to which direction to go in. And eventually turns out to be someone who ultimately is scarred by the world, but lifted by it as well and enlightened by it. So this harsh journey that he goes on actually does lead to some kind of redemption and a purpose, which eventually he finds.
I think it's important also to say that these pirates, they weren't it wasn't a kind of selfish thing. It was, you know, these guys, it was born out of necessity. These guys were privateers who were kind of cast off by their country because they were absolutely served no purpose for them anymore. And, you know, with that comes a kind of an anger and a resentment, you know. So they had an absolute purpose. There was no, it wasn't a kind of, it wasn't a kind of like, yeah, I want to make some fucking money. You know, these guys felt betrayed, you know, by their countries. Yeah, and in those days that was absolutely huge, you know. Sorry, I just wanted to say that because, you know, that's their kind of overriding super objective is fucking you bastards, you know.
There's a great line where Edward asks Mary, what do you think of this whole pirate republic? And she says something along the lines of, I think it could be revolutionary, you know, in terms of what we have to endure under a monarch or a government. And I think that the idea, as you were saying, the idea of the republic of pirates is a great one, and I think that
it's an anarcho-syndicalist commune.
it's like a bunch of killing hippies.
Yeah, but the people that attracts, how on earth are you possibly going to govern the more extreme elements of that?
But, I mean,
it was just always doomed to failure.
That's what I love about it, though, is because it's a microcosm of, in a way, it's a microcosm of all kind of political systems. You know, it starts off with the most brilliant ideal, and just kind of falls into shit. You know.